Kerr, when we came to Murrayfield, we thought that the All Blacks would have a challenge in front of them, but not like we got here tonight. This Scottish team, they threw everything at this All Black side, and in some ways maybe a little bit lucky not to be that team to get that first win.
Oh, I'm sitting back with my feet up after 20 minutes thinking, oh, this is going to be a 50-pointer. And then they came straight back into it. Then there was this period right through the game, probably from 20 minutes, and then Scotland played well, but for sort of 50 minutes, we just didn't get the ball. And then the last 15 minutes, bench was outstanding. We haven't spoken about the bench like that for a long, long time. So I think it's an important win for the group. I was worried for long periods of the game. I thought, wow, you know, we're running out of minutes. A couple of things went our way. We got the bounce of the ball, but they stayed strong.
If they win against England, how much have they turned this season around?
When they win against England.
Well, if. It is if. Because there's no givens. We saw that tonight. You can't take anything for granted.
Yeah, no, exactly. And look, and I think that there's so many things at play at the moment. There's World Cup selection. There's some guys on the fringe. You know, what is... I'm old school, right? So for me to see 7 changes, especially 9, 10, 12, 13, from last week, it's difficult. Us old guys, we don't sort of get that. But at the end, Ian Foster's right. He's played these guys. They've come through. They've got a tough win. So now, what do we see next week? Do we see Hoskins Satutu coming onto the bench? Do we see a couple of guys getting that last moment to actually put their hands up and go, I want to be part of this squad? I can't see too many in this squad that aren't actually part of this conversation, but they'll all want to go home. And we say in the All Blacks, you want to lie on the beach without a rock in the middle of your back. We do not ever want to lose at Twickenham. It'll be a hard test match. But if you can get up and win, that's been an amazing Northern tour.
I couldn't say it any better than that. I'll leave it at that. Let's bring on England at Twickenham in 6 days' time.
Indeed, let's bring on Twickenham in 6 days' time. Brendan, Laney, 20 test matches for Scotland. They haven't beaten the All Blacks yet, but gee, they were close at Murrayfield. Had them panicked too.
Yeah, they did, mate. Look, 10 minutes at the start, 10 minutes at the end, the All Blacks were really, really good, really direct. They got the game going. I must admit, I was a bit the same as JK. That first sort of 10, 15 minutes, I thought the Scottish boys are in a bit of trouble here. But I think we've got to give some credit to the Scottish. I thought they played outstandingly well. There was a couple of opportunities they got. Okay, you know, Darcy Graham, was outstanding on the wing. His try was an absolute beauty. But, you know, a try underneath the bin, which was, you know, a penalty try, which I thought maybe the bounce of the ball maybe did hold, but, you know, you touch a guy under the bin there or in the goal line, it's a tackle, you're out of the game, aren't you? In 10 minutes, and that's exactly what happened. He ended up in the bin. Look, I was just stoked for Scotland with the way that they played. Their attitude towards it, they threw the ball around, and they were really direct with what they did. And that there, another 10 minutes either side, and once again, going back to the All Blacks, they did well in that last 10 minutes to get back into the game because they were under the pump.
A couple of moments, Chelsea, where they really got the Murrayfield crowd behind them, in particular when Anton Leonard-Brown went off. Let's just talk about that quickly. What was your take on a penalty try? For me, tackling a man in goal, irrespective of where the ball is bouncing, that's fair play. Yeah,
look, I think Anton knew straight away that he was going to be sent to the bin, and I fully agree with the decision. I think the thing that gave Scotland the momentum was they played really smart when Anton was in the bin for that 10 minutes. They really capitalised there, and I think Stuart Hogg led a lot of that attack. And I tell you, I came into the studio this morning at 3 a.m. feeling a little sluggish, but after 15 minutes into this game, where I saw the passion and just the elation from Stuart Hogg and his actions and just how passionate he was when he was playing, I was awake after a little while there. So, we see here some of these fantastic little kicks he was putting through, and yeah, I think that would have been a try for all money. So, an interesting game, tit for tat, and I think the All Blacks will take a lot out of that. But I agree. I think Scotland 10 years ago, they wouldn't have showed up with big, fast, dynamic, strong wingers like that. They've come a very long way, and they're going to take a lot out of this game as well.
Ken Gregor-Townsend will be pretty happy. I mean, there was a lot of direction to the way the Scots played, particularly with the ball when they got it out wide, but maybe just a wee bit isolated on a couple of those occasions. I think you alluded to it, Buff, where they got close to the goal line to scoring a couple of tries, but outstanding work by the New Zealand loose forwards.
Yeah, Chelsea makes a very good point about what Scotland were like 10 years ago and what they're like now. You know, they play England, Ireland, France, Wales every year. in the Six Nations. Everybody sees the tapes. Everybody reviews each other, and that's on the field and off the field. And the reality is international footy, and we've seen that. It's not only we get really frustrated here about the All Blacks, but how's Australia going with their recent record on the Northern Hemisphere tour as well? South Africa's had the same situation with Argentina as well. And to be honest, we want international rugby. If we want it to be compelling, we need to be on the edge of our seat. Gone are the days where the All Blacks can just walk into Murrayfield and walk away with a 25-point win. Those days are long gone. And I thought, as Brendan said, I thought Scotland were outstanding. Very athletic, big, played some good footy. And, you know, sure, you know, we can talk about the yellow card and the penalty try till the cows come home, but we all know the rules. If you haven't got the ball, you can't tackle them.
I thought the All Blacks were very sideways in their attack as well. Like I said, that first 10 or 15 minutes, we were really direct, and we got go forward, and we put the defence under pressure. And then for some reason, we sort of went away from that. And, you know, Havili's try, he was running sideways. Even if he'd given it to Barrett, he was running the guy into the touch. So when we actually were direct and gave the ball some air, we just looked so much better.
Yeah, it seemed to me like when Anton did get that yellow card, we lost a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
And Scotland gained a whole lot of confidence. So we went away from, you know, throwing our back balls and looking for space. We closed up a little bit and didn't play our normal expansive game. And Scotland, on the other hand, who usually are very direct and they use their big forwards a lot, they were playing an extremely expensive game, using the width, throwing the behind balls, throwing miss balls, and looking very elusive every time they had the ball. And that was the chunk of the whole middle of the game, really, apart from the first 10 and the last 15, Scotland were the better team.
Well, the Black Ferns had to rely on their spark plugs off for the bench in the World Cup final. The All Blacks too had to rely on their pine to get it done at Murrayfield. Let's hear what the All Blacks coach Ian Foster has to say. He caught up with Goldie after the test.
Yeah, to be honest, it's exactly what we expected against Scotland. You know, they're a grown force. They're a hard team to play against, and they played with a lot of passion on that early part. But you know, I'm really pleased that last quarter. I really felt like we were getting to them, and we just needed maybe to hold the ball and just make them make a few more tackles, and that turned out to be the case.
A number of players you've given an opportunity tonight, the likes of Akira Ioane, Mark Tilley on debut. How do you think they went?
Really well. You know, I thought Mark particularly, I'll talk about him because it's his first test and it was a special time, and you know, he obviously got that early try and got a late one, but his work in between I thought was really quality. So he's been with us a while, and I was really delighted with him.
One last test match left in 2022. It's England at Twickenham. Is that the perfect way in some ways to finish this season for this group? And are you excited for that last challenge?
Absolutely. You know, there'll be a lot of talk about it, but it's, you know, we'll get over tonight and reflect on tonight. But, you know, the chance, you know, the big test at the end is always special. Twickenham's always special for us, and you know, bring it on.
Thanks, Coach. Well done.
Cheers, Colin.
Plenty to talk about, that is for sure, ahead of the England match. Midfield, and Ken's just said he'd bring Stacey Fleuler in and pair her up with Rieko Ioane. I'm not sure if we can make that happen, but Chelsea, it is an area of contention. Geordie, when he came back in, he looked to sort of, you know, shore things up for the All Blacks. What's your mix going into the final game of the Northern Tour?
I think Geordie Barrett has to start at 12. I think when he did come into that 12 position on the test this morning, he just got things going forward. He's a big, strong presence in there, and I think right now he is our best 12 option, and that in turn sends Bowden kind of back to 15 and brings Mo'unga back into 10. The 13 position for me is interesting because I think Fozzie will be thinking, obviously Rico's our number 1 13 at the moment, but we need to give Anton Lienert-Brown more time as well because he's going to be a huge part of our World Cup next year, I believe.
I agree.
So do we put Anton Lienert-Brown into centre and push Rico to the wing and see how that combination plays out? That's what I'd kind of be looking at if I was Fozzie.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think Anton Lienert-Brown's our 13 and has been. The only reason he wasn't there was because he got injured, and it was a massive injury. It was always going to take him a wee bit more time to come in, but we've seen the touches in the last test, how good he is, and I think we will see that, and I hope we do see that, and I still think that Rico is our best winger, a left winger. He's an outstanding winger.
What do you reckon, Ken? Because Rico's been sensational in the midfield, so how would you stick things together for that final game and indeed going into next year?
Well, they're not going to change it now for the last test, so record will start at 13. What Chelsea and Brendan said, you know, of course, all of that makes sense, but the reality is record's been the mainstay in the midfield. And you know, what they do about 12, what they do about Havili, because Havili was the first choice 12 for a long time after Quinn got injured. Quinn Tupaia got injured. Anton Leonard-Brown, that's you all agree. And then what do you do with Jordan? So Geordie Barrett, I mean. So I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think that Barrett could play 12 if they wanted to, but I wouldn't play Geordie Barrett at 12 against With England. I'd go in with the strongest, most proven midfield combination, and that would be, for me, I'd play Anton Leonard-Brown at 12 and Rico at 13 and play Geordie at the back. And you've just got to make the call on Richie, Bowden. One starts at 10 and the other comes from the bench.
Boff, Geordie going into 12 opens the door for Bodie. And you talked about this off-air before, how difficult it is for someone like Bowden Barrett to be playing 10 one week, playing 15 the next week. Just for someone that's been in those positions, just explain how difficult at international level it is to switch.
Oh, it is. At Test rugby, you only get a certain amount of time. It's quick. It happens so fast. You make a mistake, you get punished. And when you play fullback, you've got a little bit more time. You go into 10, that time's gone. And you've also got the weight of running the game. So I feel for Bowden, to be fair. I think they've got to go to him and say, mate, you're our fullback, or you are coming off the bench and you are doing this 20 or 30 minutes. Because if we go back to the World Cup they won over there in 2015, what did Bowden Barrett come on and do? He came on the field and scored the winning try and changed the whole game. So I think they've got to make a decision with him and go, this is what you're doing, mate. This is your role. This is what we want you for. And he will do it because he's that guy.
Another guy who'll do it, Ken, TJ Perenara comes back in, gets his opportunity. It was so good to see. And, you know, the mana, the passion, it's always there. He's back in the conversation, surely.
It's interesting when how players react when they get dropped or when they get bad news. And especially when you're sitting on 78 tests and have been such an important part for a long time. And he's been an interesting observation for me, TJ. So in between Super Rugby and the NPC, TJ went back and played for the Norths Rugby Club in the local club competition, led his club team Norths to the Jubilee Cup, which is a prestigious winter trophy in Wellington for the main thing. And then he was a very, very important part of them winning the Ranfurly Shield and, of course, winning for the first time in 22 years, winning the NPC. And there was 3 significant competitions where he, like Kendra, you know, the number 9 touches the ball more times than anyone else on the park, so they have a major say. Kick, pass, run, all those key positions, as well as defending in that tough area with a lot of traffic. And to me, if you know, you need to, by whatever criteria you wanted to measure, he has been an exceptional personality in terms of the way that he's handled and conducted himself with such class and grace, because he could easily have, you know, signed a mega deal to go to Japan or go to Europe and say, well, you don't want me, flip New Zealand a bird, and off he goes. But he hasn't done that. He stayed back and forward, and the game turned when he came on. That's no disrespect to Finlay Christie, who's a good kid with a big, enormous future, but TJ was the key player that turned that game this morning.